What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and this I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what data is coming out for tomorrow. That's going to be very important for the markets, what the option chain for SPY is suggesting, what you should be watching for going into tomorrow on the charts. But before I break anything down all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed up to 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks, and this offer ends in just a couple of weeks. Anyways, now let's talk about the market. Let's talk about how things are looking. So, looking at the market right now, SPY was down 0.32% for the day. It made an attempt to balance very nicely and ended up just failing. And because it failed to get that breakout, it's still, once again, on a very strong downtrend. The same thing could be said about the QQQ and other tickers out there. I'll be talking more about the charts in just a few minutes. But for tomorrow, I just want to remind you that an hour before the market opens, we have the non-farm payrolls report coming out, the labor force participation rates, the unemployment rate, and the manufacturing payrolls, and very important data. This data is going to be very important an hour before market opens, so watch to see what happens with the payrolls, and the unemployment rates is going to be the most important piece of data. The market's expecting an increase in unemployment. This is what's likely going to happen. We're expecting 3.8 to 3.9%. The previous report was 3.7%, so we'll see how it ends up looking. Now, don't forget that all of this data can be manipulated, so once again, take it with a grain of salt when it comes out, but the market is still going to react to this, so we have to take the numbers for what they are. Now, at the same time, don't forget that at 10 o'clock a.m., 30 minutes after the market opens, we have the ISM Services PMI reports and also factory data coming out. The ISM services, not to mention the ISM services prices, this is also going to cause some volatility 30 minutes after market open. And that's pretty much it for the market. We just have like Barkin from the Fed giving a speech at 1:30. So we're going to see a lot of data in the morning, an hour before market open, and 30 minutes after market open. And that's pretty much it for data. So I'll talk more about the data later on into tomorrow for like the 10 o'clock a.m. session. And then I'll be talking more about this as well. I'll be reacting to this during the pre-market. So watch and see how these numbers affect the markets. Let's see what happens with the unemployment numbers. It's going to affect the Fed's policies too. Now, for the fear and greed index, right now the market is still at greed, but we're becoming less greedy than before. We used to be at extreme greed. We're still stuck at greed. Other indicators, such as market momentum, are becoming less greedy. We're still in the extremes, but we're starting to cool off a bit. Same thing with the extreme greed that's starting to decrease when it comes to the stock price strength. And another very important one is going to be the put and call options. This is starting to go up as the market is kind of downtrending. We're starting to see more puts being bought and calls being closed. We're starting to see a big shift in market sentiment so far. The VIX is also testing the 50-day moving average. We're kind of stuck right there. We'll be watching to see if this could break over the next week or so. So watch all of this very, very carefully. Now, to add on to all of this, I just want to call out that when it comes to SPY and the options chain, things are very, very interesting right now. So for tomorrow, it's going to be very interesting. Not your typical Friday, because we have a little bit over 500,000 calls expiring and a little bit over 500,000 puts expiring. This means we have a 1.02 puts to call ratio. They're almost the same amount of calls and puts expiring for tomorrow, with max pain being at 468. 468 is going to be very important. We'll see how this ends up looking. This is going to be very pivotal, at least for the markets. So we'll just wait and see what happens. If I was a market maker, I'm not really incentivized to cause anything too crazy because max pain is very close to where we are. We could just see the market close to where we are. But at the same time, I mean, the market makers are not going to be as impacted either way we go, because there's a very balanced options chain right now. They don't have to squeeze shorts very hard. They don't have to like hurt the people holding calls either. It all depends on what we see when it comes to intraday price action. We might just close very close to where we are, if anything. That's it for the main pieces of data for now. Now I just want to break down the charts. SPY is in a very significant place. We actually lost 468, which is a very bearish signal. The question is, do we get a follow-through move? On the daily time frame, we look kind of bearish right now. I could see this actually dropping a bit more because we ended up losing this pivotal support at 468. We also lost the 20 EMA on the daily time frame. So this is favoring the bears thus far. We also have 466 at the 5 EMA on the weekly. If we lose this, 465 is coming next. We're looking bearish on the weekly if we close where we are. So the bears are winning so far. On SPY now, if you look at the channel SPY was in, I have two different colors, by the way, so I could kind of like color code these, by the way. So you can see this blue line right here. This is our resistance. We were attempting to break out today. It tried to break out. It wanted to break out and it ended up failing. So it tried really hard. It failed to get the breakout, came back into the channel. Now it's testing this resistance right now at 468 right now. So the question for tomorrow is, how are we going to react to like the payroll data? And are we going to maintain this channel? Because so far that's what it's doing. This is going to depend on if we can try to hold 468 again or not. So watch 468 as resistance, watch 469 as resistance, 470, 471.5, followed by 472.5. For support, we're going to be watching 467. If we lose this, we're going to be on our way down to about 465. The most likely possibility for tomorrow would be we might just get another one of those flat days. So we could gap down. I'm not sure if we'll gap up or gap down, but we do look kind of bearish. So we could see another drop like this, back down to 465 or so, then a bounce, and we might see this thing close very flat, very, very flat, because of the fact that there's so many options expiring and they're like kind of like in the middle. So like there's a very balanced amount of puts and calls. So I wouldn't be surprised if they close us very close to where we are. So a little drop and pop could happen, and we might see this thing just kind of once again end up kind of flat, maybe a very boring day. So we'll be watching for a move like this. We might maintain the channel. But overall, the technicals still favor the bears a bit. There could be more downside coming first. So make sure you watch 467, see if we come down first before we try to come back up and close very flat. I'm calling that out because of the options chain. SPY is very balanced right now, so we'll just have to see how it goes. On the QQQ, this is also looking kind of weak because Aapl was kind of selling off, and so have been other tickers. This thing attempted to break out. It was trying to break out. It failed again. And this white trend line is acting as resistance. We could see this thing kind of pop tomorrow towards 397, then reject and make our way down to 395 and just trade sideways. I find that very probable. I think we might just see a very sideways price action with some downside again. Might kind of pop and drop and then kind of like trade sideways after that. We're on a downtrend overall. If you actually look at the trend, we have a nice downtrend right here. You guys can see this quite clearly. And it might maintain this downtrend for now, especially since it's going to be a Friday. The chart still looks bearish, so watch it very carefully and be very careful in trying to trade the QQQ. I also want to call out that on the weekly time frame, we look very bearish. On the daily, the QQQ also looks kind of weak. We have a weak-looking daily candlestick. If we lose 395, that's going to be a very important support for tomorrow. Then we have like 389.98 at the 50 EMA on the daily, so watch that as well very carefully. For Tesla, the daily 200 EMA is at 234. I think it might test this, so we might see Tesla drop a little bit more, but it might bounce after that and just kind of trade sideways. So I could see it dropping just a few dollars down and testing the 200 EMA on the daily and trying to bounce. It looks bearish on the daily, so there could be a bit more downside coming. If it loses the daily 200 EMA, it's going to turn even more bearish. We could see this thing come down to 230. But I think it's going to test this at the very least to 234, see a little bit of downside. They're going to be looking for a big reaction after that. I also want to mention that Tesla has this channel. So if you look at Tesla's chart real quick, we have this channel basically. You guys can see this channel very clearly. We've been stuck. We've been making lower highs and lower lows, downtrending very nicely. And it actually tried to break out of the channel, came back into it, kind of popped back up. We could see Tesla kind of fail here again, though I wouldn't necessarily rule out the possibility. It might come down temporarily to like 234, then bounce. I think that's very probable. It might drop first and try to bounce and then come back to where we currently are and just maintain the range we have right now. I think we have a strong support at 234. There's also some support around 237. Watch those two support zones. Watch resistance at 240, 242, and 244. Might drop first and try to bounce. And I say that because of the fact that we have the 200 EMA to test and also because of how the market is performing. Nvda had a nice inverse head and shoulders like structure trying to bounce. But now what happened was we got this rejection at the end of the day with the markets. Watch 479 as a key support. If we lose this, watch this next support 477, followed by 475. For resistance, watch 482, followed by 485. I think that we could be forming a flag on Nvidia. We might just maintain this channel. We might just see this thing continue to do this, go back and forth between supply and demand before it slowly uptrends like this and makes a big move either to the upside or the downside. We'll be watching that very carefully. But I think Nvidia is going to maintain this channel, so watch it slowly uptrend a little bit more before we make a much bigger move. It could test this lower support right here. If we lose this, we'll turn more bearish. But watch this channel. I think Nvidia is going to maintain this for the time being and slowly uptrend just a bit before we make a bigger move. On Aapl stock, this thing was trying to bounce and ended up failing again. Tried to get this nice breakout to 183, failed so far. It came back down to 182. and now it's kind of stuck at 182. If you want to be bullish, you want to see it break and hold 183 to try to fill the gap to 184. If you're bearish, you want to see it basically lose 181 and come down to 180. My gut's telling me we're still on the downtrend, but we're trying to base at 180. I wouldn't be surprised if Aapl kind of like comes down to grab liquidity at 180, then bounces and just trades sideways here for some time with range-bound price action for a boring day tomorrow. I find that very, very probable. With that being said, let's go over just a couple of others real quick, guys. I'm going to try to be fast. Rivian looks kind of bearish. I think 18.2 is coming. We could see this thing test the 18s very soon, especially tomorrow. Daily looks kind of weak. SoFi, it's up 1.32%, but I think that the daily is set to test 7.84, so it could have a little bit more downside before it tries to bounce. It might reject off the 50 EMA at 8.5, so look for a little rejection that could be coming. The Russell 2000 we call downside, this gap to get filled, which is what ended up happening. Could drop down to 192 and watch support right there. If that fills us, watch for 190. IWM looks kind of bearish, might drop and then kind of pop back. Trade a little bit flat with some downside very soon. If you look at Microsoft, I think it's going to test 364 soon. I think it has more downside coming. A test of the 50 EMA, then maybe a bounce is likely going to come there. For AMD, it's trying to get back, but I told you if you want to be bullish, you want to break above the 20 EMA at 136.5. We failed to hold that, so it's not looking that great. But thanks to Nvda and these other stocks out there, could get some momentum to try to fill this gap. So it could actually push a little bit to 138, then reject and come back down to 135. I'm going to be surprised if it tries to push just a little bit temporarily. For the VIX, we're trying to hold above the 50 EMA. We're also testing the 50 moving average. We'll see if this could break. If it breaks 14.5, it's going to push up more. And this is going to be because of the market dragging it down. So it looks bullish, a little bit more bullish for now. Watch that very carefully. The dollar index is looking kind of weak, but it's trying to push. It had a weak day today, but it's still trying to uptrend. We'll see if this can break out again. I think it's going to test 103 soon, so I still think there's more upside coming. For Coinbase, we're talking about a little pop again. I told you it might test 160 then reject. It did test 160 and reject, but it didn't turn down. It's still holding up. But I think that there's a good chance we might see Coinbase come back down and eventually test the 50 EMA. So I think it might come down towards 144 again. Look for a little pop and drop on it. For Google, it came back down as predicted. Going to be looking for a test of 136 soon. Looks kind of bearish on the daily. For Amazon, we talked about 145 coming. It actually broke below that to 144 as predicted. I think that this thing is going to test 142.8 very soon. It looks a little bit more bearish. Meta also looks kind of flat. I told you that Meta could see some downside, but watch that 344 area. We have to see if this breaks or not. So far, it's holding up. It has resistance at 350. Might test 350, then just trade sideways between 350 and 344. But if it loses 344 and closes below that, that's when we officially turn more bearish. For now, it's trying to hold up, so we'll just have to wait and see. Watch and see, just like what I said yesterday, if we break 344. We're going to likely range trade for now, and then we'll see how it goes. That's it for the video, guys. Wanted to make this one kind of quick. Thank you all so much for listening. Have an absolutely spectacular rest of the day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you, and peace out.